Welcome to Sky Women. I'm your host, Dr. Carolyn Moyers, a wife, mom, and board-certified OB-GYN. This is a place to educate, empower, and inspire. Join us each week as we share the power of women's stories. Real women, real stories, real inspiration. Put on your stretchy pants. Let's get going. Welcome, Sky Women. Welcome back to another episode. I am so delighted that you're here with us today. We are switching gears and talking about the fourth trimester, that postpartum period. And we have with us today Dr. Lindsay Moore. She is a pediatrician and internal medicine physician specializing in postpartum and lactation care. She is a mom of two who suffered a difficult postpartum period and has really spent the last decade kind of becoming that physician that she desperately needed during her own postpartum period. And she's on a mission now to help transform the fourth trimester care. And we all know that anyone who has become a mother knows how challenging that fourth trimester is and knows how you feel like you've just been dropped off with a baby and a lot of bleeding and discomfort, right? Welcome, Dr. Moore.
We just sort of like drop you off a cliff. We really. Goodbye. Exactly.
I know. You kind of feel like, wait, am I qualified to go home with this baby?
I love when I talk to patients, just this week, another one looked at me and she's like, I don't understand. Everyone tells you how wonderful babies are. And they don't tell you about how awful it is. And you don't have any, if you don't have support and it's not set up for you until the baby's here and you're in the midst of it. And then suddenly all the people who told you how great it was are like, oh yeah, of course really it's like hard. This. And she's like, you didn't tell me. Why didn't you tell me until I was in it? And I'm like, I don't know.
I know. Why aren't we talking about this, right? There's so many aspects to the female journey that I think are really challenging. And we do find ourselves kind of suffering and thinking that everybody else has it figured out. And we're the only ones who are just like wallowing in the hot mess express. And the truth is, you're not at all alone.
I don't know a single, in all of my contacts and classmates and colleagues, I don't know any pediatrician, family med doctor, OBGYN, or other physician who swam right through all of this and thought, I've got it. Most of us, either we got lucky and it wasn't terrible, but it was still hard.
Yeah.
And some of us got completely like tackled and taken down by the fact that I just assumed that because they taught us at least a little about all the problems and a decent amount about all the organ system issues, that if there was a lot to know, they would have taught us something. And then I had my child and I went, this can occur? And I still have sometimes colleagues who, I haven't talked to in a while. Every now and then someone will still say to me, like another doctor, even a pediatrician will say, wait, I'm sorry, you're a breastfeeding medicine physician? And I'm like, yeah. It's a thing. We're working on a board exam. We are a field. There's more of you? Yes. Wait, there's enough to take a board exam? Yes. There's like textbooks on a shelf there. Yeah. And they're just shocked.
Yeah.
It's changing. I don't get that as much anymore, but it's the forgotten. I mean, women, we're the forgotten, anything that's just us just isn't as well covered.
Right. I mean, I was just fighting with the pharmacy today over trying to prescribe testosterone for a woman in perimenopause, postmenopausal period. I'm like,
women also have testosterone? What?
So frustrating.
Exactly.
Yes. Or
it's
how
not
we
just the male hormone. Ooh, what?
No, I know. Okay. So you had a difficult postpartum period that kind of led you on this passion. Kind of walk us through some of the highlights of those challenges.
So the most obvious part to me was that labor was pretty hard. I certainly came out of it safe and okay, but it was very long labor, vacuum at the end, a lovely, nice tear, and, just a lot of pain from that and all the deep stitches.
And then you're just cleared at 6 weeks. Go have sex.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, no, that was a lot longer. I was like, you stay away from me. Nope. That didn't happen ever again. Well, maybe not for a long, long time. No, given that they don't tell you that first degree tears are only graded on the outside. Doesn't discuss how far inside it goes. I was like, why am I in so much pain? All those stitches. Oh, elbow first, baby. Those aren't fun. So I had just a really hard labor, to me at least, and then a sort of delayed, like initial, but then delayed hemorrhage. So it didn't get diagnosed how bad it was until after, because even in the hospital, the nursing staff would be like, oh yeah, huge blood clots. Okay. And I'm like, how many times is that okay? Just a lot of feeling, even in the very beginning, that even though I was at a great facility that I had trained at, there was a lot of sort of dismissiveness of pain and bleeding and any symptoms that the mom was having. Words like, well, even a C-section mom is already up and walking. I'm like, it's been 7 hours. There's just a lot of this, like, as soon as the baby's out of you, the attitude changes, even amongst those who are doing a good job caring for you. So that was really just, I wasn't even aware of what was happening because I was so exhausted. Then you're sent home, in my case, at 2 a.m. when we hit 48 hours, because why not send a new mom out in a snowstorm with ice on the road? But insurance, they were like, nope, gotta go. And I said, okay, just a lot thrown at you all at once when you're exhausted and not sure what's going on. I was exhausted, of course. I ended up not needing a blood transfusion, luckily, but absolutely exhausted from the postpartum hemorrhaging. And I did what I really didn't see coming, and what hit me at the time was how terrible lactation was for me. So I tend to use the word lactastrophe. And it's not my word. Dr. Stubbe at UNC made that up, and it's truly true. It was awful. And just almost everything possible that went wrong, pain, bleeding, baby with torticollis, all of these things. And I didn't realize at the time, I definitely had postpartum depression or anxiety or both. That was never diagnosed until years later. I see it now. So all of that was going together, and I sought out so much care. I would go to the lactation support groups and I would try to get help. And I had a lot of people caring about me and having maybe some decent tips, but nobody was suggesting anything that would tie it all together in a diagnosis, explain what was happening to me and what we could do other than one or two very standard sort of answers.
Yeah.
There were no breastfeeding medicine doctors in my city. There weren't very many back then. And so I went back postpartum, used all the things I learned that didn't help me, because eventually I got through it. And I started helping other moms and realized there's something pretty addictive. Like when you're able to help a mom latch and she comes into you bleeding nipples like this, and she's like, I don't want to nurse the baby. I'll help you latch if you want. And then if you see they just lean back. It's such an oxytocin surge for you too, as a doctor. It's almost like draining an abscess, right? It's immediate gratification.
Yeah.
No one hugs you after you drain their abscess. So I started realizing how many of my patients, I'd never been asking these questions because I didn't know to. Yeah. I look back at my notes and I'm a little ashamed at how little I picked up on. And I started learning over the years more and more. And then I started finding out there were other doctors who do this and mentoring under them, and basically cobbled together my own fellowship really over years and built a breastfeeding medicine clinic at my old job where I worked with a largely Medicaid covered population, got a grant to do work on breastfeeding systems of care, then realized I got pretty burned out of the regular system. And so 3 years ago left to open my own thing, basically.
Nice. That autonomy is good for you and your longevity of care of patients. So that's amazing.
I have found that I was really didn't like leaving the underserved care because there's such inequity and they needed my help and I was doing such work. But what I've loved since leaving is over the last several years, I've realized so many physician mothers in my state and local to me have found me. And either for their first or they had a terrible time last time and I was able to help this time. I've helped a lot of them. And they then oftentimes go on to become way better at breastfeeding care like I did. So I love the trickle effect that I'm able to start seeing these ripples that I can't reach that many patients on my own. Yeah. I can reach it through them. So
that's really amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite things, I think.
Yeah, that is amazing. So your mission is to really transform this fourth trimester care. Tell everyone there is a new movement for fourth trimester care, and there's a great resource. What is the name of that website?
Yeah. So Center for Fourth Trimester Care, I believe it's c4tc.com. That is, I am not on the board. I didn't have time to sort of add another thing on, but we have a whole group of physicians who are really interested in changing lactation, postpartum, fourth trimester care. And if in the last couple of years, they started banding together, sort of saying this is a thing and we're going to do it. And it's not just going to be scattered people here and there, and really started encouraging each other, getting the movement going. And then they founded the C4TC so that we can start pulling resources together, which is awesome. It's in the early stages still, but they're accomplishing great things. So
right.
I love that.
Right.
Changing fourth tri care. I tend to tell people my goal, my whole purpose of my job now is I want to do advocacy and all that, but I want to take people who are expecting or new parents who are overwhelmed, worried, not sure where to turn. And I want to guide them so that they're thriving and confident in this time. I can't make you not bleed, and I can't make it not be hard, because I haven't written the blog article yet, but I say it a lot to patients. I'm like, newborns suck. Like, they're wonderful. I love them. Yes. They're the best, worst, most beautiful, awful thing you'll ever do. Like,
yes.
That's what they are.
Yes.
And you need to have help learning where to navigate that, when to know you need help, and how to be confident that you can learn to listen to your baby and know what your family needs. It's a huge shift. Huge.
It really is. It really is.
Lifelong, enormous shift. Absolutely.
Yes.
Basically.
Yeah. You alluded to this earlier when we were chatting just about, once postpartum, always postpartum in many aspects, right? In the family dynamic, social, in your work environment, but also health-wise, if you have gestational diabetes, if you have hypertension in pregnancy, preeclampsia, these are things that can present later in life, especially as we start approaching perimenopause and menopause. So let's chat about that a little bit.
For sure. Yeah. Once you're postpartum, you are forever postpartum. Postpartum forever in my book. Yes, you're in a different stage of it, but you don't just bounce back. I mean, I don't really want to go back to who I was. Maybe it would be nice to fit into my old jeans sometimes, but other than that, and most of the time I don't worry about it as much as I ever thought I would, because my 7-year-old daughter, when she comes and says, "Oh, fluffy belly," and I say, "What?" She goes, "I love your fluffy belly. That belly had me and it grew me, and it's my pillow, and I want a belly like you when I'm a grown up." And I'm like, okay, all right, body positivity. We're going to practice what we preach until we believe it. And it changes everything. And exactly, when you have health conditions during pregnancy, like gestational diabetes, that forever increases your risk of developing full-on diabetes. Lactation for longer periods of time decreases that risk. So you have these interesting, all of these factors that play against each other. And not everybody gets recognized later on, especially because you don't have to be overweight to get gestational diabetes, as you know.
Right.
Some of the absolute healthiest, most fit, skinniest people I know, because it's all about hormonal response, they ended up with gestational diabetes. It's really easy for those patients when they get in today's world, we often get kicked from doctor to doctor over time. Yeah. If someone doesn't really hone in on that, that can get missed, that you need to be really careful following them up. So those things follow you just like your children do forever. It's not until they leave the house. It's until you worry about them until you die. That's it. That's all there is to it. Forever thing. Yeah. And
true story.
Rapidly at first, right? Like postpartum, everything in your body changes rapidly. The first year and a half of a baby, things change at such a rapid pace. Every time you think you know them and their routine or how they act, throw it out the window. Tonight or tomorrow, it's gone.
Yeah, and they've changed their preference. They've changed their favorite food.
Right. It's a constant, just like reeling. And so you forget to take care of you. Right. And then so often, and the medical community completely forgets about you. I mean, and I know a lot of OBGYNs who want to do better care in that area, but let's be real. You're not paid for that.
No, the system does not.
Exactly. What is it? The wraparound fees. You get paid less the more you see someone. So if you add good postpartum care, you are not able to get more patients in, and the system isn't going to let you do that. So there's no incentive. And even if you do, it's a 10-minute visit. I can spend 2 hours with someone, and I often do, and there's so much to handle and talk about.
Yeah.
So no insurance company, no hospital system is ever going to pay you as a doctor to do what I do privately. They won't. It's unfortunate.
No, it's so true. I mean, and this is kind of my soapbox. Let me just pull it out here.
Feel free. I have some if you haven't noticed. Like I've got a lot of my own.
I mean, it just drives me insane that if you sign up with insurance, they basically are saying you're setting your worth, right?
Yeah.
But I cannot operate in that system and provide the quality concierge care that women deserve.
It's not that only. That's what I find. I used to, at the end of my regular clinic time, in the regular system, I found myself sometimes just being so exhausted with all the patients. I'd be like, oh, that patient wants extra from me. And then one day I stopped and went, wait a second. When did I start to believe that getting 25 minutes with me was extra and demanding?
Yes. Yeah.
They're getting what every patient deserves and what I went into this to do.
Right.
My entire reason.
Yeah.
When did I get switched to this? Like, no.
No. The system starts to brainwash you.
It really does. I want and I think that we can slowly turn things around, but I wasn't going to be able to change the system where I was fast enough for my mental health. And so I was like, all right, I do truly believe that if we really keep hammering and getting people to understand how important this is and demanding that it's necessary and that it's worth a lot, I think that as we get that more mainstream, then eventually we will start seeing some trickling down because other people will start to demand it as well. Why aren't we here? We have questions. There will be tension with that. But I do think that blazing our own trails lets us have the chance to do the advocacy and be outspoken in ways I can't if I'm gagged by a system that doesn't want me to say certain things. And so we can really make some noise and try to move that forward. It is possible in those systems. I built a breastfeeding clinic where I was, and we were going to take it further. And then I just couldn't stay. It can be done. It's just, you have to get creative and outside the box. And it's hard to develop that idea.
Right.
So I left the box. I'm
to bring everybody along. Yeah.
Exactly.
So give our listeners some of your best tips. I know you have some free resources for those who aren't in the Indianapolis area, who can't see you in person. So give us some of your best tips and let us know where we can find you.
Sure. So you can find me at my website. It's lindsaymooremd.com. I'm sure you'll have that like in the notes or something where people can find it. I am on Instagram and Facebook. It's very simple. LindsayMoore_MD on Instagram. Okay. Facebook is currently at Indie Postpartum Doc until I can figure out how Facebook will let me actually change the name to Lindsay Moore-MD because it's being, technology. And
I know.
We're working on it. But through my website, there is in the resources tab, there's a link where you can get signed up to get a free 30-minute video class with a lot of my favorite top tips for breastfeeding. Okay. It can be done and it can be added to a typical breastfeeding class because it's oftentimes the people who see me have done a class or two. And then the most common thing I hear is, why didn't anyone tell me this tip 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago? And I'm like, I don't know. That's why I'm making this, because I find that so many breastfeeding and postpartum problems are predictable. They're common. They happen at predictable times. It's predictable challenges. We can say this will be you. Mm-hmm. Let's plan for it instead of letting it smack you in the face and having you be unable to find help because you can't think straight postpartum because you're exhausted. Right. Let's predict it. Let's prevent it if it's easy enough to prevent. And let's give you the signs to watch for to insist on more care if it needs to be fixed quickly. So that's why I really want to get education out to everyone. I'm not the only person out there who can teach you how to breastfeed, and that's okay. I may not be the right personality, and that's okay too. But I am the right person for some. If you want someone who's going to tell us straight, unvarnished truth, I can hold space like the best of them, but I can also no. That's not what I do. Like, no. And so whatever, I'm going to have fun while we teach a lot of concepts. And I don't want parents to necessarily remember everything I say. But if you've heard it and you have a framework and you know how to easily find it again,
Mhm.
Then when someone says something that triggers like, wait a minute, what do you mean I should soak my nipples in salt water? Dr. Moore said something about this not being okay. Bad idea, but common advice from non-physicians especially. And so just not knowing that basic wound care, and so we're getting there. So my first thing I have is the free video course. I am going in the next month or two, going to be launching my first purchased course for lactation. And then we will be adding more and more classes for tips for postpartum, certain ages past postpartum, weaning, basically just really breaking it down where people will be able to buy one class, a package of classes. And the dream is that hopefully by next year, we'll have a sort of a virtual community of support where they can be a member, and it's not medical care, but you can get a lot of this general advice.
Mm-hmm.
And then my members, if they need help that I can't give them because I'm not in their state, I can help them find someone who I know is a good, adequate person who can help them quickly, because we're spread out, those of us who do this, but we know each other. So I can navigate it. I've had someone from California recently reach out because they saw one of my blog articles on breastfeeding. And then she's like, can I see you? And I was like, I can't do that, but I know who you can see. I already texted her. She's expecting your call tomorrow morning, and, sort of smooth out.
Right. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Just having that network and knowing who to reach out to. So for our listeners in Texas, Dr. Andrea Wadley is in our area.
She's fabulous.
Yeah, she's fabulous. And she's been on the podcast in the past and kind of talked about what she's doing. So that's a local resource if you needed somebody in person as an in-person option. And then another great resource you're probably familiar with. She goes by Dr. Megan. I'm blanking on her last name right now, but she has a book, The Forgotten Trimester.
Yeah, I have it on my shelf back there.
Yeah. It's a great, easy
Piper, I
read.
think, right? Is that her last name?
Piper?
I'm terrible at names, but I have
Forgive us, Megan. I'm sorry.
So sorry.
So
find her, The Forgotten Trimester.
The Forgotten Trimester. And it's phenomenal. Yep. It's an easy read, like on an airplane ride or while baby's taking a nap. Like it's an easy read to answer a lot of those questions that you have in that fourth trimester if you're just feeling lost.
Practical, when to call someone, what to know without all the hundreds of pages. I love it.
Yeah, right. Because let's face it, we just need the facts, ma'am.
Like your brain to not when you're that sleep deprived.
Yeah. You don't need a textbook. So fabulous. I love highlighting these resources. I love your energy. Thank you for what you're doing. This is amazing. And everyone, tell us how you spell Lindsay, because I was looking it up, Lyn, and it's not.
Yeah. So it's the old, like 1981 when I was born, the common way, when there was only an E or an A and everything else was the same. So it's LINDSAYMOOREMD.com. Perfect. So go look up that resource. If you have either been a mom or you've got somebody in your life who's a new mom who could really use these resources. So do me a favor and subscribe, like, and share this show so that this episode can help others. Thank you, Dr. Moore, for joining us today. Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
Until next week, be well.
All right, Sky community, thank you for listening to another episode. This episode was sponsored by Sky Women's Health. As a reminder, we're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and we help relieve back pain and pelvic pain in pregnancy and beyond. If you are pregnant and having pain and you feel like you have no reliable way to relieve it, look us up at skywomenshealth.com, request an appointment, and we'll call to get you scheduled. As a board-certified OB-GYN with a neuromusculoskeletal medicine fellowship, I help you realign with hands-on drug-free treatment and relieve pain on the spot without medication. We'll help you maintain these results through your pregnancy and postpartum period. Every pregnant person deserves this, and we are so excited to serve you. You can find us on our website, as mentioned, or on social at Sky Women's Health, or you can call the office at 817-915-9803. That's it for today. Until next week, be well.